Welcome to the Filmistines, the podcast where we discuss all things movies. Join us as we dive deep into the latest releases, revisit classic films, and explore the art of cinema. Whether you're a film fanatic or just love a good flick, we've got you covered. From Hollywood blockbusters to indie gems, we'll be breaking down the storytelling, cinematography, and everything in between. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready for some cinematic magic. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films for future episodes. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you for joining us today. I'm joined today by my trashy friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
Glad you could be here today to talk about a movie.
Yeah, me too. Almost didn't make it in because of all the trash I am.
All the trash you had to dig through.
Yeah.
Because you live in trash. You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines, including great episodes like our coverage of the Netflix One Piece adaptation, our M. Night Shyamalan ranking video, exclusive to Patreon. Both of those are. Come join us.
Give us $1.
Landscape with Invisible Hand, Talk to Me, Strays, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. All fine movies with the exception of Strays.
Yeah, don't watch Strays. Go listen to our episode, but don't watch the movie.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time.
We're glad to have you here today because today we are discussing a interesting movie from a couple different angles. Of course, we are talking about Isle of Dogs, directed by Wes Anderson, and this is Lucy's first Wes Anderson movie. Let's get a round of applause.
Sorry, I clapped early.
That's enough. I'm very curious what you have to say about your first Wes Anderson movie. Not a great introduction into Wes Anderson. One, because it's stop motion. Most of his films are not. He does have two stop motion films, but most of his films kind of have a little bit of a different flair going on, although minus the symmetry thing. The symmetry thing is all over this movie and every fucking thing he's touched, which is very cool. But what do you think I thought about this film?
I think you enjoyed this film. I don't think it's one of the best movies you've ever seen. I don't think you give this a 5, but I do think you enjoyed this film quite a lot. I think you see it as a, how do I phrase this? Like a good or a very well made movie. And it hits all the, all the check boxes, so to say.
Okay.
But I don't think it was anything special like Hereditary.
Okay. I think you liked this movie. I think you might be a little confused about how you feel.
Hell yeah. Good.
With this movie, because there's a lot of maybe unexpected moving parts happening in this movie. And especially upon some research, you're probably a little more like, you're probably battling between appreciating the art form that we just witnessed and what actually happens in the film. Yeah.
That's a fair assessment.
Because this is the kind of film, when I watch it, not a lot of directors tap into this with me, but it's the kind of film that it reminds you that film can be a powerful art form, just in general.
Yes.
And that can include just through technique, craft, and, of course, character and messaging. And you can, you see that all over the place in great films. But these, Wes Anderson, you can see, it's kind of, I like Wes Anderson a lot. I do. I have to admit, I do like Wes Anderson. I'm not one of these Wes Anderson-esque film bro type people. I don't live and die on his hill like some people do with Tim Burton. Tim Burton and Wes Anderson not in the same playing field. Wes Anderson's a god amongst men as far as filmmaking goes. Wes Anderson as a director, and more specifically Isle of Dogs, is the kind of film that makes me excited to watch more films. It's kind of the reverse of Strays, which is the kind of film that makes me want to stop and take a break from watching films entirely.
That's funny.
So this is a nice buffer, nice kind of counter to watching Strays recently.
Nice, bring me back to life.
Yeah, this is a CPR of a film in my situation.
That's funny.
Or the paddles, the defibrillators. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, defibrillators. Whatever.
That's a fun word. So I'm very curious, like I said, what you have to say about this film. Very, very curious. I've been thinking about it since we finished the film. But I did want to start off the podcast with exactly how Wes Anderson started off the movie.
With drums?
With drums. No, the title card. It says, the humans in this film speak only in their native tongue, occasionally translated by bilingual interpreter, foreign exchange student, and electronic device. The dog's barks are translated into English. So with that said, I think there are a lot of moving parts happening in this movie, but we are revolving around one particular theme, of course, and that is the concept of translation and maybe one step further, localization, right? And I fear with people watching this film, if that is lost on you from the get-go, this film is gonna be weird. It's weird already, just in craft, which is part of the coolness of it, right? But the funniness comes out of the concept of translation, I think, because I do think this film is kind of funny. So please talk to me about some of your thoughts on Isle of Dogs, man.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that the saying?
That is a saying.
All right, that one. You did that. That one. I liked the movie. I'm sure we'll get into it, but visually, it was beautiful. It was awesome. I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like this visually. So that right there, I can appreciate at its maximum. But there were other elements that I've never seen in a film either, like the interpretation spin, I guess for lack of a better word, and just some of the messaging here. I wasn't exactly, maybe I'm just dumb, but I didn't quite get the point I was supposed to get, where I'm still thinking about this movie, days later.
That's awesome.
So I've never had a film make me think about it days later. Usually I either don't care or I've thought everything I'm going to think about it. But even now, after watching it, after doing my research, after listening to other people, I'm still currently thinking about it. So hopefully this episode wraps up some of my thinking, because I'm tired of thinking about this movie.
It's living rent-free too long. It's getting evicted.
Exactly. But just something about it, maybe that I have to think about it too much, that I didn't quite like. I didn't quite know how to handle it. So I'm just confused. There's no other way to put it.
Well, hopefully we can
confusion on my feelings on this film.
Hopefully we can kind of get that straightened out here. I do think this is probably one of the more complicated movies that we watched for the podcast. If not the most, I would say Beau's Afraid and The Whale are probably the two others. But the two others have to do with the human condition, which are very familiar, relatable, and beaten to death.
Yeah.
Which I can never get too much of course. But this is something very specific to everyday living. Because I know the backbone angle of translation in this movie obviously is around the Japanese to English translation. Okay, that's pretty overt, right? Nothing hidden here.
Mm-hmm.
But we experience translation on a day-to-day basis. We experience translation on a moment-to-moment basis, from the granular to the literal Japanese to English kind of situation we have here. You understanding me, you're having to process and translate what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
This happens everywhere. And another really important way that happens in a movie is like through the grapevine, which I love with the dogs. How he's hearing the rumor mill. He's rumor mill dog, right? I think that's Bill Murray. That one. That's his dog.
Duke.
And I fucking love that is kind of the little common thread that we have kind of simultaneously happening. And there's even a meta commentary. I mean, there's even a meta translation happening here where the dogs understand Japanese, but they're translating for us without it being so overt like the translator is for the politician. Because she's literally just, he says it, she translates it for us.
Yeah.
There is no, the boy speaks, the dogs listen, they respond, we interpret what just was, what was just exchanged. And if that's lost on you, it's, I feel like, going to be a little bit of an issue with the film, because it's gonna maybe, I don't know, I just feel like it's so, I mean, to me it's so obviously essential to what the film is trying to say, which is just another form of translation, right?
That's funny. Yep.
That it's, if you don't get that from the get-go, this film's gonna be challenging it's gonna be frustrating, it's gonna be challenging in the wrong ways. And so please talk to me about this film. Please. I'm so curious. Sorry if I interrupt you, because I'm excited to talk about this film too, because I do like this film a lot.
Okay. Good. I thought so.
Yeah. This is a me film, right? What do you say?
Yes. If I'm confused, it's a you film.
All right.
If I'm confused in a good way, let's say it that, it's a you film.
Thank you. Sort of, I guess.
So I was a bit, I don't want to say lost or confused, but just thoughtful about what this film was trying to tell me. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more on the translation, but there was maybe a little bit too much here for me, like the translation thing, like the, what was he called? The mayor of Megasaki, him kind of being like, here's a law I'm going to pass just because I feel like it. And then we have Tracy, our foreign exchange student. And I know she wasn't put in here in this film for no reason, but I'm having trouble understanding why she's there. I'm really confused on why she's there. And then, we have this, like, dog is man's best friend. So there's a message there, with Atari going to go find his dog and risking everything because it's illegal, first of all. And just, there's just so much here that I like, I'm telling you, I feel so just kind of dumb trying to think about this film.
No, I don't feel dumb.
It's like, whoa, I am no longer watching this for entertainment whatsoever.
Yeah, the entertaining part is just the pretty colors all of a sudden. So where do you want to start?
Let's you brought it up, let's start with the translation.
Well, the translation is going to be the backbone of the entire conversation, probably.
Okay.
So, somewhere more specific.
Let's start with the death theme he kind of had going on here, but kind of teasing you with it, because no one really died. The only person that died was the scientist that got poisoned. But other than that, nobody else died, although it was teased throughout the whole film. And it was funny, but
I think that's an important part of the death theme is...
And this wasn't a happy film. It wasn't...
No.
I felt it was sad.
I know, I totally understand that. It was a sad film without really being all that sad. There's not a lot of sad things that happen in it, but there are a few moments that are just a little bit heart-wrenching and just kind of like how human and emotional they are.
Yeah.
Especially with the boy, of course, right? With the dogs. And I guess the first instance of that is probably when he thinks his dog is dead.
That's the first instance for you?
Maybe. I guess the first instance is when they drop off spots.
Yeah. When they drop him off, like here I am volunteering my family dog, and he's in a cage, and he gets dropped off. And that's it. You don't know if he got out or what.
So I think the intent behind the death theme here is just to be funny. And there's a funny thing happening within that, because I think it's so overtly funny that it challenges the viewer, whoever that is. And statistically, you have to assume, right, that most viewers are not going to think anything death related is going to be funny, except people who are into like so-called black comedy, right? And so all of a sudden you're faced with this micro kind of translation of a viewer who's not into that type of black comedy having to confront it in such a way that they have to ask, like, who would find this funny? You know, how do you find this funny? You know, they're processing that, you know, that kind of thing. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because really the only times you have maybe a funny or a moment where you laugh about death is in horror films. And mainly comedy horror.
Yeah. Usually because they're so absurd and just outrageous, you know.
But this isn't it.
Yeah.
So you're very confused on how you're supposed to be feeling, but I am laughing in these moments. And it's like a relief laugh. It's maybe it's like an uncomfortable laughter, like, oh, oh damn, he just did that to me.
There's like this weird kind of meta empathic thing that's having to take place within the viewer for people who just don't get it, because the other side of that, the bigger kind of blown up picture of that is this film isn't made for an English speaking audience, right? But Wes Anderson's a very English, or I should say very American director who makes American movies, right?
I think this movie is made very specifically for an American audience.
I think it's made, see, that's an important part. I think it's made for specifically non-Japanese audiences, for us to get the translation message or theme that's kind of going through here, to get it kind of in its full form. Because I think the Japanese audience is going to find something else in this film.
Yes.
And from what I could tell, it's an even funnier movie. All the little Japaneseisms that happen throughout this film are apparently just like a chef's kiss kind of situation.
Okay.
Like, and we're just not going to get that, which is, how do you work on so many levels?
See,
this is some Stanley Kubrick shit.
Yes.
This is, I mean, it makes me want to learn Japanese. You know, but that's not going to be enough, obviously. Because just because you speak Japanese doesn't mean you're going to understand Japanese sensibilities.
Yeah, the culture, the everything, yeah.
And so there's just this, like, chilling kind of element of craft that's happening in this film. And then not to mention the, 25 different very notable Japanese voice actors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like, how, this shit reminds me of like Robert Eggers with The Witch, where he just spends 5 years basically getting his PhD in, 1650s Northeastern American history just to know how these people should talk and behave. It's just like, where do you even start with this stuff? You know what I mean?
Yes. I feel like I need to rewatch this movie a couple more times to even begin to understand anything that I just watched. Because surface level, it's a cute film, but very surface level. It's a boy trying to find his dog, and he dies. Like, I guess that's it.
And it almost works on that, like, kid level like that, too. I mean, it doesn't almost, it does. It just works on that level, because the weird little Wes Andersonisms happen in such a quick, kind of David Lynch way, where you're just like, that was weird and, kind of offbeat and off color, but it doesn't, it's not really consequential to the overarching story. But he does, the dog gets taken away, he goes to find the dog, it's got some ha-ha moments and some weird, funny things, not really in slapstick, so we can't get too kiddie, of course, but he does, he gets the dog. And then, like you said, no one really dies. Nothing bad really happens. Nothing's graphic, really. The most graphic thing is one of the most beautiful things at the very end of the fucking movie, where he's getting his kidney transplant.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, oh. At the very end, you're just like, what did I watch?
It's an adventure story, really.
Yeah. It is.
And kind of going back to the teasing death topic here a little bit. When reading reviews on other people's thoughts of this film, they use the word melancholy. How this film is very melancholic. But I don't know if that's the right word I'd use.
Yeah, it's got a flavor of melancholy, but it's not.
It's not, yeah.
There's a lot of ingredients happening here, which is the sign of course, I've said it a million times, that is a sign of a really great film, a successful film,
Yeah, and I guess I'm still stuck on the word I would use for that. Maybe there's a beautiful Japanese word that ties what I'm feeling into this because it's not melancholic. It's sad, but it's a different kind of sad. It's not disheartening. It's still, kind of beautifully hopeful, but it's I don't know. But I'm just not sold on the melancholy that everyone keeps talking about.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to say because melancholic films tend to be deep, I guess, in their own right, but it's a little shallow to say here, actually.
Yes.
Because there's just so much spice and flavor happening with Wes Anderson in general. I can't wait for you to see some more Wes Anderson.
I don't know
stuff.
if I'm ready for him.
I've heard Wes Anderson be called all style and no substance.
I think that if you don't pay enough attention, I can agree. Because initially, that was my first thought after the film. After, immediately we got to the credits, and I'm like, wow, this was a very beautiful movie, but I have no idea, the story was almost bland. But that was just, right after. And I'm like, okay, now I have to think. Doing this podcast helps me definitely analyze movies, because otherwise that's where I would have stopped. Like, wow, beautiful, but I wouldn't recommend this story to anybody. But now I have to think about what I just saw for more than 2 seconds, and I'm instantly amazed and confused, and it's like, holy shit, there's way more here than I would have liked.
And it all comes back to that title card, too. This is how you use a title card, Christopher Nolan. All right? We need to back up on whatever the fuck you're doing and take a note out of Wes Anderson's kind of craft. All right? You guys are both fine filmmakers, all right? He says it all in the beginning.
Yes.
As far as to what to focus in on, Because like you said, the story's not really complicated. It can't be, because that's not what's the point here. It's not what's important. The translation, the localization, the disinformation, the gossip.
Yes.
That's what's important here, all right? That's why Tracy is an important figure here. It's important that she's white. It's important that she's from Ohio, all right? It's important that she's got this agenda that she knows nothing about, all right? She's misinformed. She's out of her league. I think it's important. I love that this film came out in 2018, somewhat at the height of misinformation, right? Not understanding that this film revolves around interpreting the socialisms of the world. Not even just language, but body language too, right? Especially with the dogs and Atari, right? We have no choice but to interpret his body language, right? We can interpret what he said through what the dog's response was, of course, too.
Right.
Just another lovely level of meta translation and interpretation, right? But I fear that with this kind of film, because it's not so overtly trying to say something like a David Lynch. It's not a great example, but
No.
like a David Lynch kind of thing. Like his movies are so strange that they're obviously saying something that if you just don't get on board with, you're not going to. We know there's something there, but you maybe just not mentally there to take it. Here, it's got such a beauty and craft and simple story, complete stem to stern, that you could feel like that's all there was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I kind of fear it, because you'll be missing something. I don't fear that with David Lynch at all, because I challenge you to try to dissect his films first. First of all, have a good luck. But it's obvious that something's kind of deeper there, right? It's not obvious here because it's kind of obfuscated by its simplicity.
Yeah.
Minus the symmetry. Jesus fucking Christ. How do you put symmetry in 95% of your film? Every single shot, every fucking thing is just like, it's sensation overload and how complete everything is. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is the kind of film that makes me want to watch just films, It's crazy. I wish more people appreciated Wes Anderson. I feel like he is a little bit underrepresented, underappreciated.
You think so?
His lovers are loud and colorful, but his films don't make money. And that's not, they make a little bit of money, I guess, but I feel like he needs to be a little bit more of a Christopher Nolan type. I feel like he should be revered as much as of a Christopher Nolan, because I think he's much more important to the craft than someone even like Christopher Nolan. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because he is loved. He's a household name, but he's the kind of household name that you know his name, but you've never seen him in his movies, like Stanley Kubrick, like Francis Coppola.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, let's go back to Tracy, because again, I was confused on why she was there, because she wasn't essential. She was just a point.
She was a little bit of a switch and bait, because she's supposed to come across as a white savior, or better, a little bit more politically correct today would be like a Western savior, right? White savior is all inclusive now. Like she could be black. What is a white savior?
Yeah.
A white savior is someone who goes to a far land that's kind of detached from, the Western world, the white world, and is there to save them from themselves, to show them what the good life looks like, to show them to good technology, interesting technology, to teach them better philosophy, to tell them that what they're doing is maybe not so right.
Like people who go on mission trips?
Oh, shots fired. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that what they're for?
Yes and no. They're trying to spread. I think idealistically, aren't mission trip people trying to spread the word of like their God?
I don't know. I thought mission people were there to help other people become more
Western.
Yeah,
if that's true, yeah, they're all white saviors.
And I don't know. I've never been to one. Never have experienced one. Haven't talked to anybody about one. Just I guess shit you see and hear in movies and your day to day, whatever. But I don't think they're there to convert people, right? They're just there to help. And if they get converted by maybe their message, then that's a plus.
I think that is dependent upon the denomination.
Oh,
okay. I think some have rules against it or not, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So that's what she's there for.
Yes. She's an important piece to this. Not to the movie, but to what Wes Anderson would know, I guess what would come, because he's a funny guy, obviously, right? His movies are all comedies. I don't know if you know this. You might actually find movies, comedies that you like within Wes Anderson. I had kind of forgotten, because I hadn't seen one in a couple years. Well, I guess I watched French Dispatch last year, or 2 years ago. But we'll cover that one. Great film. It's got our boy Timothée Chalamet in it.
Oh.
Briefly, but it's a vignette movie, so it's kind of fast-paced in that way. And it's also a movie that's kind of hard to read into.
Great. Let's space those out.
Yeah. So I don't want to run through all Wes Anderson movies. He's one of these few directors who I just have this weird tendency to savor. Like a good game, just like I don't want to move on from it. I don't want to get through it. I want to savor it, and then you never get through it. You never finish it, and then you fucking die.
Because Tracy has a picture of Nutmeg in her little quarters.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, why does she have that? Is that her dog?
That's her dog.
So her dog's there like on a secret mission? Because she's well groomed, Nutmeg. She's not dirty. She's not like the others. And I guess there's some rumors about her, but that's just one of the funny parts. But she's taken care of. So it's like she's not there with them on the island.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't really thought about that. That's, yeah. What do you think about that?
That we have, I mean, what you're saying now makes sense. This Western girl now infiltrating the island. And Nutmeg is there to get Chief to help Atari.
Genius.
Some more fucking getting in the business here.
And that's a little bit one step deeper than the purpose of Tracy, because I think Tracy is mostly there to represent, on some level, I should say, not in its entirety, because Wes Anderson's not going to let something be so one note. It's funny how you can have a movie entirely about interpretation, translation, and it not be one note, right? You don't think you could take that very far at first glance, but you can take it into a movie that's culturally significant and important, I think. I think this is probably one of the most important films of the last, few years. We don't get an awful lot of them every year, so it's, that's not saying much. But I'm going to read you a little something from a critic of Roger Ebert's website today. Right. So a writer over on Roger Ebert's website, Odie Henderson, I don't know if he still works there, But he wrote a review for this film back in 2018 when the film came out. And he did not like the film, I guess. He said, Isle of Dogs does not have a compelling story, and even worse, it has the most egregious examples of a director's privilege since the Darjeeling Limited, which is that's another Wes Anderson movie.
Ah.
This movie really pissed me off, and the only thing I found soothing while watching it was silently repeating myself that the dogs are furry, reminding myself of the film's best asset kept me from walking out. So I think that's how he started off the review, and there's one thing about editorializing, reports and news and whatever and everything, and of course it's a review, right? So it's a very editorialized piece, but injecting your sensitivity into a piece is it's very sophomore, right? I don't know. It's like very text messagey, It's doesn't if I just not to editorialize this right here, right, for this guy, but he continues. You would think Anderson would be the perfect director to pay homage to Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike the warm Miyazaki, Anderson is a very cold director. He keeps everything at an annoying hipster's ironic distance, valuing aesthetics over meaning and context. I don't know if you read the title card, my friend, but it's pretty overt what's happening in this film. I know I've gone on and on about how I think it's easily looked over. Once you're 20, 30 minutes in the film, you're not going to think of the title card. How many title cards are important, right?
Yeah.
So I get that, but it's pretty obvious when a film is or requires a little bit more out of you, I think. And he should have probably watched it again.
It's almost like he took my initial 2 seconds and then stuck with it.
And he writes for Roger Ebert's website, which is
fuck?
pretty unfortunate because Roger Ebert is, whether you agree with him or not, he's one of the funnest film critics there are. He loves movies and he loves writing about them. It's very clear that he does. This guy doesn't like movies, apparently. But he goes on and says, Anderson's Japan is a place where every explosion is rendered as a cutesy mushroom cloud, and the public speeches always include haiku. I should say, in fairness of Odie, that these each quote I'm reading is separated by some information, but it's a lot of the same and him explaining the plot. So you can go look it up if you really want. It's not very long. And then he says, Tracy is the only white person in Isle of Dogs, and she is the film's white savior, which you'll see lots of people say that who don't like this film. And then goes on about her rallying the locals. The only time Isle of Dogs reaches for your sympathy is when Tracy is faced with deportation back to Cincinnati. I couldn't get past Anderson's usual clumsiness when dealing with minorities. I think that was like one of the last things he said. So I just wanted to read that in fairness of Wes Anderson and to kind of represent a non-glowing view maybe, but you can just find that by simple searches on Google, of course. I'm going to try to say this without sounding like I'm champion Wes Anderson, okay?
Okay.
But our boy here, Wes Anderson, is I don't want to say exactly making fun of people like Odie, but basically making fun of Odie for trying to stand up for a thing, thinking that people don't understand what is happening, trying to play the white savior. Odie is trying to play the white savior here, saying that he went on to say things about how it's culturally insensitive and stuff, and appropriated. And
even though he worked with,
yeah, you would think, okay, you watch the movie and then the credits roll, so you start noticing how many Japanese people are involved in this. So
that's not your first immediate clue.
And you don't think, as a critic who gets paid to do this, I assume, unless this was his last gig, I'm not. Wouldn't you think you'd want to reach out to maybe a Japanese friend, Japanese critic, right? Someone who knows and is a little bit more familiar with Japan and their Japanisms, right? I know you said when you finished this movie, you were a little like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck mode, which can be good or bad, depending on the movie, right?
Right.
But my first thought was, what does the Japanese audience think about this film? That was my first thought. Because it's so overtly Japanese, made by a fucking American. Just like how when Ghost of Tsushima came out, I think at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, gamers' minds, was, what is the Japanese going to think about this? Because that's just, I don't know, maybe gamers are just a little more on the cutting edge of thought, even though they're annoying, right? They're quick to think, but they say annoying things, right? And a lot of Japanese creators, video game creators, came out and praised it out its ass. It was annoying how much they liked it, right? And it was made by a studio in, I want to say North Carolina. I think Sucker Punch is in North Carolina, but they might be in Santa Monica. So now I'm going to read to you a short excerpt of a different critic from The New Yorker.
Okay.
Their name is, I believe they're Japanese, Moko Fuji, maybe, of The New Yorker.
Okay.
You can go find them. Great article. And I'm just going to snap out of little things. I'm going to snip out of little things like I did with Odie here. They say, Isle of Dogs is profoundly interested in the humor and fallibility of translation. Okay. Obvious if you
read the
title card and remembered it. I'm sorry you have to remember something in the film. I know it can be also annoying to have to like read the theme of like, all right, this is what this movie's about, you know. But obviously he didn't hold your hand enough. Wes Anderson didn't hold your hand enough. So I believe our writer here is talking about the translations, the scenes of translation with the politician in the big room.
Yeah.
I believe. But it applies to the whole movie that has any kind of Japanese to English translation. It says, to say the scene dehumanizes the Japanese is to assume the primacy of an English-speaking audience. Such logic replicates the very tyranny of language that Isle of Dogs attempts to erode. Yes. And how kind of funny it is. That's the best way to wrap up this movie in one sentence. A very simple sentence. I don't know how you want to cut it. You can cut it both ways. You can cut it translation is a funny thing, or just in general, language is a funny thing. And then that's what our friend from the New Yorker said.
It's crazy how it's two very drastic articles. It's almost like they didn't watch the same movie.
Yeah.
Based on these reviews.
And Odie here feels a lot like our character here, Tracy.
Yeah. Speaking
for the Japanese. Speaking for an audience that is misinformed. It's funny.
It is funny.
How that. I'm glad Odie had the balls to put something out like that. That's very cool. I'm glad Roger Ebert's website is all about representing the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All voices.
Yeah, of course. Because you don't see that a lot, right? You see mostly mid to glowing reviews, right? No one trashing on much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the kind of movie you would generally see people just jerking off, right?
Right. Yes.
But there's a lot of nasty criticism out around this film because they think it's culturally insensitive and culturally appropriating.
I don't understand that. I don't understand how people can think that.
Well, I think the crux of it is that they think they're having this internal kind of axiom of choice happen in their mind that this film is made for me. You know, a non-Japanese speaker, a non-culturally Japanese person.
Okay.
And so why is it so overtly Japanese if it's made for me?
But it's not.
Yeah. I think that's a problem that people are kind of facing, and it's kind of exactly what we were talking about with the having to empathize with different kind of comedies, flavors of comedies.
Yes.
The similar thing happened here, and you're having to place yourself in those positions of like it should put you in that place like what is going on here? Like it should make you a little more fascinated than maybe feel anything else. In that, what is maybe just in general, like what are other people experiencing with this film? You know, like this film's making me feel weird because it is working in a really interesting, strange way that I've never ever seen in a film.
Mm-hmm.
I know films deal with the translation thing and more importantly maybe the isolation thing in films, but it usually has to do with feeling alone in your life, and you can feel alone. You're a melancholic, kind of isolated, reserved person, and you put that person, American English speaker, for an example, in Japan, and all of a sudden it's an interesting place for a drama, right? Because that sets up the potential to feel alone in more than one ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're out of your element, you're out of the place, you're out of your home,
Your
potentially,
culture,
your culture. You're not people don't speak the same kind of
the
English.
language, yeah.
They might understand and speak some English, but it's not the same, you know.
Right.
And just for sake of argument, you don't know any Japanese, right? It pushes you further back in your mind. But here, where it's what I kind of just said a minute ago. Language is a funny thing, isn't it? Translation is a funny thing. You know that. You speak Spanish. You know how the translation thing gets lost.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. And that's when we introduced the kind of concept of localization, right? We experienced that a lot with the video games, where Japanese-isms, Chinese-isms, whatever, they have to go through like this whole manufacturing process of being translated, yes, but being made to the point, being rewritten to the point that they make fucking sense where they're being sent, right? If that game's coming to America, that game needs to make sense over here, right? It can't just be the funny, whatever people find funny in Japan or not. If that's, they're trying to make a joke there, they need to kind of refigure out that joke for an American audience. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a who could have thought you could make a movie about that? Exactly that. So what are you thinking?
Well, I think people that think like our boy Odie here didn't take 2 seconds to think about this film. They're culturally sensitive, I'll tell you that. And I wonder how this would have been received and how people would be talking about this movie if it would have been in another language. Spanish, Italian, French, I don't know, Portuguese, languages I don't know.
Or more developing country.
Would they be saying the same thing?
Odie looks a lot like Tracy here, trying to stand up for an entire culture of people, I guess you could maybe expand it to.
Yeah.
It's odd. It's a good example of outrage culture. Does that feel about right?
That feels about right. I mean, he says there's a clumsiness with minorities. What?
Across all Wes Anderson films. I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
And, a clumsiness for minorities. We should maybe applaud Wes Anderson for being so bold to not try to pretend he understands them in a deeper way. A lot, that's the reason he brings on 25 different fucking Japanese voice actors for them to do some of the legwork, and I'm sure for him to learn simultaneously, right? Because he's obviously a genius. I don't know if there's any other way to cut Wes Anderson really than being a genius. Of course, this is only our first film, so
yes,
we will more to come.
But at least it's not his first film.
It's not his first film. No. Even Bottle Rocket, his first film, is magnificent.
Oh shit!
It's a great film. It's not as deep as this film, but it's an awesome film.
It's almost like I think I showed it to you before that it was like a TikTok or a YouTube short or something where there's this white guy and he's dressed up like a Mexican. He's got a sombrero, he's got a poncho, probably some maracas. I don't know what he has.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And he goes up to some white people and
probably in California.
And then he asks them, "Is this racist?"
Or culturally insensitive?
Or culturally insensitive, and all the white people are like, "Yes. Like, take that off. Oh my god, yes. That's so rude."
Just wait till they see my luchador mask.
Oh my gosh, that should be our thumbnail. And then he goes with some Mexicans, and they're like, "Do you like my outfit?" And they're like, "Yes, dude, you look so cool." And like, they're high-fiving him, they're hugging him, they're even showing off their sombreros.
Oh my god,
this movie is on par with that video.
That's a good TikTokification of this movie.
Yeah,
it is. I like that Tracy is in this movie. She's of course annoying, right?
Yes.
She's supposed to be annoying. She's rallying the troops to protest against the mayor, yada yada yada. It's kind of also supplying this weird power move to minorities because she is a minority here. While at the same time, it's funny that Odie will say that Wes Anderson clumsily handles minorities when here the Japanese are not minorities.
That's true.
So there's a lot of funny moving parts here, and I don't know how the fuck someone thinks on these deep levels. Like,
yes,
was Wes Anderson anticipating someone like Odie? Is Odie a plant? Was he hired by Wes Anderson to write this piece?
Boom, boom, boom. Something tells me no, though. I'm telling you, that TikTok, that's them. They're the Odies of the world.
Odie's from California, but it's true. Look him up. I bet he is. No, good to have you on the podcast, Odie.
Hey,
you're welcome any day. You can ban me on Twitter at the Filmesteins if you want. I can't wait to get my first ban.
Maybe we'll piss him off, because that's how he starts out. That's how one of your quotes started off. How pissed off he was.
Yeah. I like that Tracy gets deported, because that's just funny. Because you don't hear about white people getting deported. That's just funny in its own right. But it shows an element of powerlessness here. That people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, have. They're not powerful people, especially for people who are not committed to the cause in any serious way. Of course, we don't get a lot of background on her, but she sees the decree of sending these dogs away. She gets inspired. Her dog gets taken. She's inspired, but that's just it. She's just another hurt person, and she thinks she has this marginalized, powerful voice to propagate, and it's just noise. What were you gonna say though?
I was gonna say that I absolutely love that she gets deported. Absolutely love it. It's hilarious. It's probably my second funniest bit here, and I love what you just said, that she basically has the audacity, to do something like this in a different country. Because when you're here in the U.S., and I can only speak for the Hispanics here in the U.S. that are here either illegally or on visas like Tracy was here, you're keeping your head down. You're following the law. You're on the straight path. You're getting, you're doing your taxes. And I hate when people say that, illegals don't do their taxes, because they fucking do. So.
And especially when you're like the new kid, like when you're new to the place and stuff, you don't have the balls.
You don't do that. Like,
it's not your element.
You follow the straight and narrow, and the last thing you're gonna do is piss off the cops, let alone a mayor, let alone get into this politics shit. No, you're gonna keep your head down. You're here to work. You're here to do your shit. You're here to study. You're here to go to school. You're here to do whatever you're here to do, and not get involved in that. But Tracy here, aka our white people here, just have the audacity to do something like this, and it's hilarious.
And then remember, I quoted Odie saying that this is a moment of sympathy for her. Are you joking me?
No.
This is the funniest shit you'll ever see. It doesn't get any funnier than this.
I laughed. I laughed out loud. It was something I rarely do in comedy films. It's just funny that this is a comedy, because it deserves respect, because other comedies just
Yeah. But like I've said though, great movies transcend genre,
Yes, they do. They do for sure. Well, thank you. I have placed why Tracy is here in this movie, because I couldn't.
She's an important piece.
She is very important.
She's a little abrasive. She's played by Greta Gerwig, which they have feelings towards, right? I like Greta Gerwig. I'm a big fan of her work. I feel like she works kind of slow, but but whatever. I wish she made more movies, but it's a funny thing, and if you're not, she's coming at it from, Tracy's whole thing. She's okay. What's the translation angle in her? It's the misunderstanding of her situation, her position. It's the disinformation. It's
Her whiteness.
I'm kind of deadly curious. Don't worry, I'm not gonna kill anyone. That what a Japanese culturally infused person thinks about this film, preferably of 40 plus, 40 years older. I don't want any young people.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought there. Me too. Now that you said it, me too.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie, which I'm going to assume it's a lot of people's favorite scene, is where he's preparing that meal, the sushi. And, at the end, he puts that little wasabi poison thing to poison the scientist. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, why are food preparation scenes in movies and games so interesting?
I know. And it's similar to the kidney transplant scene at the end.
I don't know if you know this, but in games made in Japan, Japanese made games, these developers are obsessed with making the foods in the game look so cool. It's a very Japanese thing. Doesn't happen in any other game really, any other country. But Japanese developers are obsessed with making the descriptions of food, like the pictures or what they look like and the graphics, look awesome.
I don't think I knew that, but I have seen you play games where it just looks beautiful.
It was a Japanese game.
Okay.
I guarantee
right.
it.
But yeah, I absolutely love that. It almost reminded me of those like Pokemon videos that I think you showed them to me. Of them getting chopped up and getting prepared into food. It gave me those vibes here, and I loved it. It was very cool. It was very visually delicious.
Yeah, and graphic. It was like, yes. Whoa, this is...
He's chopping up a fish, chopping up a octopus.
A crab, right?
A crab. They were still alive. The crab was still alive. It was so graphic. It was awesome. It was so cool. I loved it.
Yeah, that was an awesome scene. That was awesome.
And there are a lot of very just... I don't even know other ways to describe it besides awesome and cool and beautiful cinematic techniques here he did with in some of these scenes. Like one of my other favorite ones was when Chief was telling us a story. I don't remember what the story was, but he was telling us a story, and it zooms. It's on him. We're hearing him talk, and then it zooms out. We see Atari put on his sock, and then it zooms back in. And that was amazing. Like you don't do this kind of work with stop motion, let alone,
Yeah, you almost lose track of it being in stop motion. It's so... I don't want to say it's smooth because you have your stop motionisms. You got the jumpy fur and, staticky looking things that are, very cool. And the facial expressions change, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got such a interesting level of personality that you're in awe. Like you can lose track of what's happening in the movie in its entirety by focusing on what it looks like and how it's shot and stuff. And that, now if you get lost in that and not lost in the translation, that's a movie. It's the name of the movie. It's the name of the movie with Bill Murray, actually. Lost in Translation.
That's funny.
But if you get lost in the aesthetic and don't have much to say about the context, the content, that's fine. That's fine. That's the only pass people can get.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And that one of the other scenes that I really appreciate was when they're walking by like a cliffside. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I just wrote cliffside. But I think it was, I don't know, it was just so weird and it was cool. It didn't look like a cliff because it was like 2-dimensional. It was flat. But I knew it was a cliff, and it just, the way it was just cutting, it was so cool. It was so cool.
Yeah. I think you know what you're talking about. It's interesting that you say it looks flat because of how he captures so many people like straight on. There's not a lot of profile.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it is profile, it's like 90-degree profile. And it gives a flatness to the world, like it's drawn or something, and not
Yeah.
caught like a normal film is. I mean, a lot of his films are caught like that because it helps. You kind of you're kind of at the mercy of some of that if you're gonna inject so much symmetry in your film.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's cool. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Because the 90-degree thing, there was this one scene where Atari's talking,
Yes.
and then I guess someone talks to him on another one of on his right side or something, and he just turns 90 degree, and the camera's like turning with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, there's so much here.
Yeah, they're like, I think it's the two main dogs, or his dog, Chief, and him sitting like a triangle, and then Spots and him are talking, and then the camera looks at him, and then the camera looks at Atari, and then the camera turns with Atari, so the conversation is now just between him and Chief, and not between the three of them.
Yes.
And it's just like
genius.
It's genius. It really is. It begs the question of why you don't see this more in normal live action films, because this is, at the end of the day, not to say animated films of any sort are lesser, but you'd think these things would be more obvious to capture in a live action film, But they're not, obviously. We would see it much more.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is here. Maybe people don't want to give him credit.
Yeah.
And take something from him.
Maybe it has something to say about some of the Japaneseisms in the filmmaking itself. Maybe that kind of transition of dialogue, conversation is Japanese. I know he's very inspired by Miyazaki, of course. And who?
And Akira Kurosawa.
Which we haven't watched any of Akira Kurosawa films yet. We will get to them, of course.
Of course.
And I'm very excited to get into that. I haven't, as much as I love 1950s, 60s, 70s Japanese existentialist, human condition oriented things, I have not watched any Akira Kurosawa films, actually. I've only read literary pieces from those guys.
Okay.
From that clique of Japanese existentialists. They're my favorite.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll hopefully at some point we'll be able to say which directors and movies are culturally significant from like a professional standpoint. That'd be cool, right?
Yeah, we gotta put our 10,000 hours in first, though.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to fucking start saying that right now. Isle Dogs, culturally significant, important to the landscape of cinema. There's no fucking doubt about it.
No, I'm there with you. Even the scenes with I guess, for lack of better words here, they split the screen, and then we have like they're showing us what's happening with like the characters, but then on the other side they have like, I think one of them was a map, and like the map, it was like a dot moving along on the map, but then on this side, on the right side or whatever, we were seeing like Atari in his plane, or I don't remember quite what it was. And one of them was when they were in that little zip line, zip line.
Yeah.
And then the other side was showing us something else, like from a different point of view. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect this movie to be so visually gold. It was awesome. It was so awesome. Was there anything he was saying by the amount of screens there were here? I feel like there was. We watched a lot of things through screens.
Yeah, I think that plays into the like proliferation of information and having to interpret that, yes, but more importantly, the one step removed from that is like our two dogs who are watching TV, or I guess the pug watches TV and she tells the other dogs and stuff. It is cute. But then we have our gossip dog, where it's just kind of a representation of how we get our information.
Okay.
I do think screens are actually extremely important. Why not phones then? Probably because the broadcast thing is a little more important, and the broadcast thing is just not associated with the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it may be lost with younger people maybe or something.
Yeah.
But because again though, it's important that it's we're dealing with like a politician, and we're getting we're part of the audience, and we're not only part of the audience, we're so far back that we have to be part of the translator, who I love by the end of the movie is tired of translating.
That's funny. She is. And I noticed that, but I guess I didn't think about it. But she is.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Just another really interesting level of the translator is not a robot,
Dude, that was me growing up, translating for my parents.
It's
God,
probably
I was
exhausting.
tired. Yes.
This movie might serve a really interesting place after all in your mind.
Yeah. I remember like going to like the most boring thing you can think of, like going to pay the house bill or paying the electric bill and having to go with your parents. And back then, because now my parents can do that on their own, but back then it was when they had to write a check to pay the bill. So now I'm here translating on what she needs to put in which thing of the check, which is how I knew how to write checks really early on in my life. But I was just exhausted by the end of it and translating, and oh my god. And you didn't just go to the water bill, you then had to go to the light bill, then you had to go to the whatever other bill you have to pay. And like it was a whole day thing of helping your mom out and translating for her.
Yeah.
And it was so exhausting.
And that's why our girl here at the end of the day, she's played by, I think her name is Frances McDonald. She's the lead in Fargo. Remember Fargo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool movie, right?
I kind of liked it,
yeah.
actually.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Might have to rewatch that. She was in that movie I was watching, Blood Simple, I think it's called. You like woke up when I was watching it and you're like, or I don't know, you started watching and you're like, this is pretty good. What are you watching? I was like, shit, now I gotta rewatch it, I guess. But that's an even funnier level because English speakers in this case and Japanese speakers aren't necessarily gonna even be able to empathize with that, because just because they speak English or Japanese or whatever doesn't mean they are familiar with the translating part of it.
That's
and
true.
how tiring that can be.
That's true.
Right?
That's
so
true.
And I did read that the English parts of this film are whatever the primary languages of whatever country it's being shown in.
Okay, so in Spanish,
in Mexico,
it's Spanish.
The English parts are in Spanish, and the
in
Japanese.
Japan, it's Japanese.
That's a good question. They're probably English. I don't know though. That's an interesting question. I didn't think about that.
If it's in Japanese and then everything else is kept in Japanese.
See, that's maybe the important part, is it doesn't matter for them, because this movie is arguably primarily a Japanese film on one side of the coin, right? For a particular message. Obviously for us, for the people, for the translation message part of the film, we it's important that we don't know Japanese, actually.
Right.
So people who know English and Japanese either watch a non-English one, so you can kind of at least get half the message. I guess.
I'm curious. I'm gonna have to look that up, see if it is.
I would be willing to bet it's English.
English or Japanese?
English and Japanese.
Yeah.
The Japanese version is English and Japanese.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet.
One thing that, okay, well, there were a lot of things I didn't get, but one thing I didn't get that's probably not as important, I hope, it's when we have this little kind of flirting scene between Chief and Nutmeg, and at the end there, he says something about like she's got papers, and then she says like, "Don't worry, baby, I'm full grown." And I'm like, what did that mean? What did all that happen? I got everything up until when they said that. He was like, "Oh, some you got papers." And then she's like, "Don't worry, baby, I'm full grown." Did you notice that?
Yeah, I remember that. Let me think about that.
Because when a dog has papers, that means it's like purebred, and show that to other purebred dogs so your doggies can make other purebred doggies. But I know in, Spanish culture and probably everywhere else, but just, I only speak of what I know here, what I can relate to. When you got papers, that means you're a U.S. citizen. Like when you're here in the U.S. and you say I got papers, you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
So, I'm saying is like, do Japanese people say that, or like do other,
other countries, yeah.
other countries say that when they come here?
Well, I know Mexico is a haven for a lot of South American people. Does it happen from that direction too?
I don't think so. Not quite like it does here.
Okay. So maybe it's a very American thing. Maybe.
I don't know.
Because I guess I kind of took it as, it's hard to know, but I definitely took it as she can make her own decisions.
Okay.
Kind of thing. So I guess the papers thing might imply in the other direction that she's got papers, so she's like, her masters or whatever were strict. She lives she's expected to only reproduce with herself, kind of thing.
Okay, I see what
She's
you're saying.
nah, son. I make my own decisions.
We can have babies. You
Yeah,
don't need
fuck
to have your
them.
papers. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
That's kind of
funny.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's good. I like that. Now that I get it. Because you don't see any romance here in this film besides that quick little flirting here, and then when Tracy says, like, damn it, I think I got a crush on you, when she's looking at Atari's picture, and then she says that just like real quick, which is funny. Again, I don't know if that had to say about, I don't know, American films always being about love, the forced love thing.
No,
it might
be. It might be. I do know the end there where Atari says something about, Tracy being beautiful or attractive young girl or whatever.
Oh, that's right.
That's a mistranslation, an intentional mistranslation of, yes, it literally translates to an attractive girl or whatever, everything, but it's a respectful way of saying so. Very polite and formal. Which I know
she probably took it as,
I know you've told me stuff about like Monday in Spanish is a respectful saying what's up.
Yeah.
And there's other ways to say that, but
yeah, you say que. Like,
yeah.
That's not disrespectful, but that's
it's not
just
respectful.
Like, that's just slang almost,
yeah.
But if you're talking to a grown up or someone that's older than
you, unless you have attitude,
unless you're waiting to get slapped in the face,
yeah, about to get some attitude.
Yes.
Yeah, similar thing happening here.
Okay.
And so there was. That's just one of many nods. That's the only one I read about. I'm sure there are many littered throughout the whole thing because it's the intention of the film, right? But that's the one that stuck out, I guess, to that one writer I was reading on, and from the New Yorker, saying that was kind of a funny, especially funny nod to not missing translations, but kind of the lack of localization.
Yeah. Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
that's fucking clever as fuck.
Genius.
God damn.
And so the Tracy thing being like, oh my God, I have a crush on you, is probably working on multiple levels because it's a setup for that for us, right? Specifically, but also probably a little bit of what you're saying where there's what did you say? Did you say fickleness?
No, well, yeah, it's fickleness, but that like American films, focus on love.
Yeah.
Even when they try to fucking force it.
Yeah. So there might be a little element of that happening there.
Oh, it's so clever. It's so genius. Because then when he says that at the end, us American audience here are like oh, they're going to get together,
But no. He's just being a respectful young man.
Oh, my God. Well, this film, man.
It's a lot to unpack, right?
It's a lot to unpack, but once you unpack it, goddamn, how can you not appreciate it?
Yeah. This is one of those directors, I think, like Aaron Aronofsky. Not that I've heard anyone call him pretentious, but this feels like a director who people might try to target as being called pretentious. And he's just, I don't know, spend a few minutes or, spend a couple hours thinking about what this movie, whatever movie's talking, whatever you're focusing on. Whatever it's trying to say, spend some time on it.
And then talk to someone about it.
Yeah, that's an important part, yeah. And maybe not someone online. So I know that's a little bit to ask for because You got to have someone in your life to talk about it with. But your parents, I bet your parents love movies. They're of that generation. Go talk to them. I'm glad. It seems like you're liking this film more and more. You're kind of
Yes.
you're kind of finding a place in your mind for all this. I'm glad.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Good.
am liking this film more and more. It's one of those films I definitely anticipated on kind of like The Whale, actually, where I liked it a lot at first, but as we started talking about it and as I started thinking about it, especially the isolation part, of Alan, was that what his name in that film? Or no, Alan was his boyfriend.
Charlie.
Charlie, as Charlie, felt like he was trapped in his house. That was his coffin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really like that film more and more, and it's kind of similar thing happened here.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you too, and that's a good example of The Whale.
Because like Beau's Afraid, I was all over that movie from the get go. I'm hooked. Ari Aster, Joaquin Phoenix,
Yep.
crazy, cinematic things that are, oh my god,
Yeah, now I wouldn't be too mad rewatching this movie. Maybe spending a few days processing probably what we just talked about and then rewatching it. I think I would really um appreciate it more than I initially did.
Good.
But
I'm glad to hear that.
how'd you feel about the characters?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about our puppies. I think they're awesome, actually. And I'm also really impressed by the voice acting here.
Yes, me too.
And it may have something to show. It may have something to say also about Wes Anderson's geniusness, because these are actors. Most of these people, or our dogs, and it's voice acting is very hard. I think we're starting to learn, or I hope it's not just me, at least. Good voice acting is very rare. It's not, because kind of like we were learning about the Turtles and stuff, how a lot of these voice acting projects involve people not recording with each other.
Yep.
That's a massive fucking problem. I don't know if Wes Anderson requires that. I don't know if it matters. He gives such great direction, apparently. But yeah, what did you think about our guys?
Oh, I loved them. I didn't know that Chief was Bryan Cranston. Once I found that out, I loved it even more. Of course, he was my favorite, and everyone else did a great job. I loved the just good chemistry these dogs had. This little pack with Chief, Rex, Duke, who is it, Boss, and King. And I love that each one had their own personality. Duke here was our gossip dog. He was the gray dog. He was the one that I guess I noticed the most, maybe because he was my second favorite. And just his tail was kind of curled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, or if
It's just the breed, I'm sure.
or what's there, but I just love that he was a gossip. And then you have
Was he also the actor dog?
actor dog?
Yeah, he performed for the puppy treat commercials or something.
No, that was King.
Okay.
So King was the actor dog. I think he was probably like the weakest in the group. King.
Who's he played by?
Bob Balaban.
Okay.
And then you have Rex, who's the wannabe leader of the pack, but he's not the leader, But it's just so funny. It's so funny that they all have so much character and personality.
Yeah.
Even our side dogs have personality too. Like all the random dogs throughout the movie, especially the cult dogs at the end that Spot.
Mm-hmm.
Spot or Spots?
Spots.
The Spots hangs out with, the cannibals.
I know, that was awesome, wasn't it?
That was so funny.
And then they were offended.
Yes.
And you know what that is? Another form of disinformation.
Yep, we see that there. We see that with, Nutmeg not really having hooked up with Luke or whatever his name was. That's actually the only two I can think of. But I'm sure there's a lot of the gossip that Duke spread here that's probably misinformation. But yeah, nice touch here. How did you feel about the actual stop motion?
Well, I don't know if you know it or not. I think you might. I'm not sure. You'd have to tell me. I'm a fan of stop motion in general. I like the aesthetic that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe there's something kind of old about it and something very technical and like crafty. It's just like it feels very labor intensive, and I like that versus something like modern anime where you have these bold ass lines, bold colors. All the fights are CG now, and it's just like everything kind of feels the same. There's not a lot of personality, I feel like, and so there's something. This is kind of like the last harbinger of like something that's just there's no way you can make this. There's no way you can gentrify this or kind of vanillify it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have a deep love for it. Don't see it very often, of course, but I do like it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just so creative. And yeah, it's an element of, wow, you did that? Like this? Wow. So, yeah, I think I read somewhere that he used real dog fur. But and I don't know what they're called, the people that move the figures,
sculptors, I think,
around. Okay. Well, they were leaving their fingerprints and then something about like the way they touched the real fur left it some sort of way that synthetic fur wouldn't. So they were trying to convince him to use synthetic fur, but he's like, "No, I'm using real fur." They're like, "But no, it does this." And he's like, "That's okay that it does that." So I don't know what actually happened, but
they used real fur. I guarantee you. Yeah, people in the bet it's probably not. What do they say? Roses and daisies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Working with Wes Anderson. Is that in that?
I don't know.
Something like that.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not when you're in the grind of it. I'm sure he's not fun to work for.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at the end of the day, literally at the end of the day, you hanging out and I'm sure he's a great hangout kind of person and fun to talk to and stuff in that way. But yeah, the grind I bet you is pretty intense with Wes Anderson, especially with how cheap his films are normally.
Mm-hmm.
He stretches his money, I think.
Oh shit.
Take that with a grain of salt. I'm not too familiar with Wes Anderson, but I get the feeling based off of just very quick glances.
Okay.
That feels like I don't know about this film. I haven't looked yet. Yeah, but the animation is basically unmatched, with the exception of Guillermo del Toro of his recent Pinocchio movie. And I mean, there's a handful of other, of course. That film, Mad God, that's got pretty crazy stop motion going on too. That stop motion almost feels like a crazy version of Adult Swim stop motion. What did you think about the soundtrack?
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. I wasn't too sure in the beginning of how I felt about it, but then it just got better and better. I really liked how they incorporated the whistling that he did, and then I guess Chief started doing it too, and it was great.
Yeah, I don't really have a big musical dictionary, but I think this soundtrack is maybe the best thing about the movie. I think this soundtrack is probably one of the best things to ever be in a movie. I think this is among the cream of the crop, man. I think this soundtrack is 10 out of 10. I think this soundtrack is, again, I'm not super musically inclined, but I do think this soundtrack is pretty easily, I think, among the greatest soundtracks ever out of a movie. I think it's awesome. I couldn't fucking believe my ears.
Yeah.
When some of these beats hit, I was like, what the fuck? I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now?
And most of the time, the sound, you either have to remember, like, oh, what was the sound like? Or maybe you have to look it up or rewatch it or something. But when the sound, or you ignore it because it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. It was just there. But when you're thinking about the sound and it sparks something in you every time you hear something in the film, you did a great job. Again, I'm like you. I don't really know much about music besides that I listen to it a lot, but
it's a whole nother beast, though.
Yes.
Yeah. We're trying to do movies here. not music.
Exactly.
You know, so but yeah, movie soundtracks rarely ever stick out to me. Video game soundtracks is a different beast because there are so many good video game soundtracks. There's a lot of them because a lot of them are orchestral, and they're just kind of inherently very cool and ambitious and loud and fun or whatever. But
Yeah, and I mean, you have your movies with your iconic
of
soundtracks,
course.
like Harry Potter,
Oh well, yeah,
Jurassic
of course.
Park.
So of course, name the other ones too. Indiana Jones.
I don't think that one's as iconic, but that's just me. That's just personal.
Damn, and Star Wars, of course.
Again.
Yeah, we've never seen the original 3. Those were all done by the same guy,
Oh,
John Williams.
good job, John Williams.
Isn't that wild?
I mean, if you're good, you're good, right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And of course, you have musicals, which I'm a fan of. So, but that's different.
Totally. And then you have soundscapes. David Lynch is real into the soundscape, just the noises of a scene of life or whatever in a movie that kind of build out the soundtrack and have like a natural kind of harmony and rhythm in them.
Is that like the dun dun of Jaws? Is that a soundscape?
No, that's just part of the soundtrack.
That's part of the soundtrack? That's
Yeah.
the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Soundscape would be like the hum of some manufacturing plant behind you that's kind of making the scene a little more intense than it would be without it. That's soundscape.
Ah, got it.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
One at a time.
One at a time. We'll start another podcast on music in a few years.
Oh, God. All right.
And the first album we'll cover is the Michael Jackson Thriller album.
All right.
Sound good?
Sounds good with me.
Well, man, do you have any final thoughts for me? We went
No final thoughts. Go watch this. Go get cultured. Sorry, I wasn't cultured. Now I'm slightly, very, very slightly cultured.
ever more so, yeah.
Ever more
And
so.
if you have the resources, if you have that online Japanese friend, that you can watch it with or you can discuss the movie with, do so. We don't all have that privilege, but if you do, man, you got to take advantage of it because there's probably something really cool to happen in that, because you can read about it, but it'd be cool if you could have that friend pause every time, like, that's funny because of this, be like, wow, I would have, how the fuck, what? That's not even funny, but that's funny in Japan. That's not funny here. That doesn't, and it just, because it just doesn't localize properly.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways, of course.
And just spend some time thinking about what you're watching. Don't go based off your first feelings, your first assumptions.
That is the best advice.
That's me almost every time.
That's the best advice right there, really. Yeah, man. Well, thank you for watching this film with me.
Oh, you're welcome. So how'd you feel about the poster?
Well, let me go ahead and just finish off Wes Anderson here.
All right.
If you know what I'm saying.
I mean, he's enjoying this.
The poster's awesome. The poster is perfect. I like all the wordage. I like how the Isle of Dogs is inside the kanji, and it's just cool. It's so fucking cool. What do you think?
Yeah. I like the, symmetry thing he keeps following here. The colors, I love this red against the white, against the yellow and the black. Like it just flows very well. And I like that Spots isn't here. I like that because this is the gang and Atari's adventure story. I really like that.
Yeah, I like how the that brown dog is peeking around. That's cute.
That is cute.
I like how Chief he gets a bath and he's white.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then you're like, wait, is that Spots? But then they say the pink nose because they know what you're thinking.
Yeah, he's much smarter than you. Wes Anderson's much smarter than you. He knew the whole time.
God,
because I was thinking it from the beginning, but I didn't want to say it because I just knew that I mean I haven't seen all of Wes Anderson's stuff. I've seen a few, but I know he knows how to make a film. He knows how to not manipulate his audience, but to kind of subvert their expectations.
He's a tease.
He's a genius. Yeah, no, great poster. Love the wordage. It's awesome. It's just awesome. Just like the film. Did he make this poster? I'd be willing to fucking bet he did. Well, man, do you have a budget prediction for me? This is an interesting one.
Yes, this was very hard. I went 75 million, but hear me out. I just based it off of Chicken Run, which I know that's not probably the best thing to do, but Chicken Run was like what, 40, 45?
Yeah, something like that.
But that was also, in the early 2000s, and this is 2018. So I bumped it up to 75 million.
It's a lot of money.
But it's Wes Anderson and 2018. And
it's true, and he worked with Fox.
And Fox and stop motion. But then you said, oh, he really knows how to spend his money, and I'm like, fuck.
Well, it says here that it was about 35 million.
Holy shit, no way.
Yes.
What? 35?
That's what I'm saying. Those are long days with Wes Anderson.
Shit, did he even feed them?
I know. No crafty.
No morning donuts there.
It's funny. Yeah, it says here that it grossed about 64.2 million. So I'm willing to bet that it made some money there. Because I don't think advertisement is a priority in Wes Anderson's world. It's pretty cheap, isn't it?
That's hella cheap. Oh my god. And is that a lot? Is 60? Would you say 68?
64.
64? Is that I mean, I know it kind of doubled.
It's not a lot, but it's definitely very respectable for sure. Especially about double, with some kind of consideration of advertisement, which Wes Anderson's not really about. I think his most advertised film was probably Mr. Fantastic Fox. I think that's the name of it.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. Okay. Either that or The French Dispatch. And I only say that about The French Dispatch because it got delayed for like a year. And so it had a weird kind of PR cycle, I think. Maybe not, but so I'd be willing to bet there's not a big advertisement fee here for him. So I think there's a good bit of money made here. So, it's not like Insidious, cost $10-15 million or less, and they end up making almost 200. You're just like, what the fuck, dude?
That's insanity.
That's insanity. This is respectable and potentially very good for the people who worked on it, because I don't believe the production team wasn't, 500 people.
Oh,
I think there were 20 sculptors, and probably I have no idea about editing and stuff, and then your voice actors and stuff, and so I would assume a team of less than 100 people. So these people are, they made probably standard rates, but someone's rolling in the dough a little bit from this movie, probably helping fund the next movie, because I'd be willing to bet Wes Anderson is a major funder of his films.
Mm-hmm.
I would be.
Wouldn't
Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if whatever state he lives in also plays a big role in giving grants and stuff, because of his cultural significance.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, this movie doesn't look like run to the movies to go watch it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think my mom was watching it at some point in my life, and I walked by her watching it, and I kind of stopped and looked at it for like maybe 20 seconds, and I'm like, what is she watching now? This looks boring. And then I left.
But in reality, your mom has good taste.
In reality, she's got good taste. Which is surprising, because at least half the movies we've covered, she has seen way before I have ever I even knew these things were a thing. It's just funny, because that's my mom.
No, I get that. That is funny. Well, man, do you have a game for me?
Yes.
Whoa, shit. I was not expecting this.
And today's game is just rapid fire. So
okay.
Thank God. All right. Ready?
Set.
Chief or Spots?
Chief.
All right. Japanese or Korean?
Korean.
Korean.
Yep.
I'm going Japanese there. Duke's gossip or Rex's voting system?
Yeah, I like the voting system. It's cute, isn't it?
It's so cute.
Because we didn't talk about that, but he was so...
So insecure.
Well, Chief was so, like, antagonistic or, like, just, you know, how he is that he just didn't stand a chance, you know? He just always got outvoted. It's so funny and cute.
Yeah.
But the gossip.
The gossip? Okay. Yeah, it was funny when he's like, all right, who votes that Chief has to do this? And they're like, I.
Yeah.
And Chief's like, that's not even fair.
Yeah.
Oh, that he has to fight the robot dog.
Yeah.
That was funny. Yeah, I'm going with his voting system. Well, but both were super adorable.
Yeah.
All right, Trash Island or Megasaki City?
I guess Megasaki City.
No Trash Island?
Mm-mm.
Me too. Domesticated or Stray?
Domesticated.
Domesticated? Not Stray? Not Stray. I'm going Stray. Last one. Atari or NES?
Atari or NES?
Mhm.
Oh.
Aha.
NES.
NES.
Yeah, There are. I challenge you to find 5 good games on an Atari system. Any of them. Any of the Atari systems.
That's funny.
You're gonna find maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
Pac-Man and Galaga. And maybe Dig Dug, I guess. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. My dad likes Dig Dug though.
I guess Asteroid or whatever. Not Asteroid, Yeah, no, Asteroid. I guess I wanted to say one more thing, or ask one more thing. What did you think about the ending where the mayor donated his kidney? That was a pretty emotional scene. I think that was probably the most emotional scene, if not
Yes.
the only,
Oh
really.
my gosh, there's so much we didn't talk about. Because before that, I wasn't sure on what made the mayor change his mind to let the dogs back. It was just like a sudden heartfelt thing with his nephew. I don't know, but that was cute. That was cute that he changed his mind and now he's going to give his nephew a kidney. Like, whoa, that escalated quickly, but I liked it.
It almost made me... It shows, like, the fickleness, I think, in human nature, and that it almost made me believe that there was kind of a misunderstanding happening here through either politicians to civilian kind of talk or from the translator herself. And so it took this antagonist and kind of remolded him into a human being,
Yeah.
by just a flip of a switch, basically. And it happened as quick as it happened on screen, really, through his sympathy towards Atari and understanding the degree of danger he put himself through to save his best friend and to find a new best friend in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot more to talk about. You could talk about this movie from a lot of different angles. There's maybe something worth saying about propaganda and capitalism here too, but because what's up with the cats?
Oh yeah.
There's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, I think so too.
But we definitely tackled it from a specific angle. But yeah, man, thank you for discussing this film with me today.
Thank you for maybe helping me gather my thoughts and, not letting me stay up for days thinking about this. Now have a better grasp.
Yeah, I think we tackled the more intentional part of this movie because I think the cat thing is a little bit more of a ha-ha.
Yeah.
And there's definitely something to say about that, but it's a little less of, the requirement,
Yeah,
It's the fluff that it's not fluff, but it's the kind of icing on the cake, the kind of to sell the comedy part of the movie, right?
Right.
So, yeah, this will probably be a movie that lives with me rent free for many years. It's it has the chance of climbing the ranks too in my scoring system too. Immediately after watching it, 3.5. A couple days or a day after watching it, thinking about it. How long's it been? 3 or 4 days? It climbed to a 4, and I was just like, I'm pretty comfortable with that. And and now I'm challenged with, is this a 4.5 in my mind? So take some massaging.
Yeah, for sure.
As I'm glad you're learning. It's always a learning experience. You never fucking know. Like, that's part of the fun of watching so many movies, right? But thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. This is a nice meaty one here for you. No peas and carrots here, just meat and potatoes. You know what I'm saying?
Meat and potatoes.
Nice and hearty. Hope you had fun listening to this, and hopefully we unlocked an interest. Maybe go watch the film if you haven't already. Of course you should, probably before you watch this. But this is not really a spoilery movie. You can't really be spoiled what this movie is. Surprise, he finds spots, I guess. Surprise, it's not dead, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode. You can catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes of the Filmistines. We can't wait for the next one. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.